are 12 million full-time farmers in the EU. Extend that to the agricultural sector, you're looking at 6% of GDP, some 46 million jobs. In order to support it, Brussels gives 40% of the EU budget to the Common Agricultural Policy, or CAP. A plan not without its controversy, as we saw in the first half of the show. Hello and welcome back to this special edition of Talking Europe. In this part, we're going to be heading to Italy. Farmers there say the paperwork they have to fill out in order to gain benefits from CAP are simply too complicated. And over in Germany, we'll be getting the reaction to plans to suspend the quotas of the production of sugar beet. We start here in Belgium. We're now in the Parc du Cinquantenaire, in the heart of the Belgian capital. With me I have the Secretary General of Europe's largest farming lobby, Mr. Pekka Pesonen. Thanks for your time. Tell me, first of all, these CAP reforms came into play in 2015. So far, better or worse than before?
Well, we certainly hope that it would be better than before. The big question also is how does the CAP deliver when it comes to the markets and market prices. And
indeed, it looks though that markets, notably in relation to exports here in Europe, is doing well, a steady growth of something like 8.6% over the last 10 years.
Exactly. Exports themselves do very well, but then I'm afraid it has been done to a large extent at the expense of farmers and their farm gate prices. And we had to find new markets, especially after the Russian embargo. That meant that we had to reorganize ourselves, and that costs us a lot of money.
Now, part of the CAP reform was meant to make things fairer for farmers across Europe and indeed within their own countries, making big and small farmers more on the same playing field, making a farmer in France and a farmer in Poland gain more or less the same subsidies. Has that happened?
Well, we have seen the extremes coming closer to each other, so that we don't have, let's say, very high or very low payments per hectare. But then, of course, some differences still prevail, and they are the reality in each of the member states. So while we make a comparison between the Polish farmer and the French farmer, we have to take into account that within each of the member states we have differences in payment levels.
And that hasn't evened out to any extent, because there had been criticism in the past that these CAP payments largely favoured the large farmer.
Well, I wouldn't say so, because basically European farming structures are very, very small. It's very small farmers that we have, internationally speaking, and we still have that structure. Actually, that is to our detriment when it comes to the market, because those relatively small farmers actually can't compete that well with the bigger retailers and bigger businesses globally.
Okay, now another big chunk of the CAP budget goes to companies, big industries that are profitable, agriculturally based, perhaps using cereals, but pretty far from the farmer in the field. I'm thinking of Nestlé, Campina, these kind of companies. Is that fair that they take such a big chunk of the budget?
A particular feature in the CAP reform was to decouple the support from production. And in this respect, European agriculture is much more market-oriented than before. And to the detriment of those big multinationals, they can't rely on farmers getting the subsidy on the basis of kilogram of milk or butter or beef or cereals. They would have to pay at least a better price in relation to the market on average. But of course, we haven't seen this coming through fully yet, and we are certainly working with the European institutions to make, for instance, the European food chain work better.
Okay, well, in just a few minutes, we're going to look at how farmers in Italy are dealing with the paperwork. They say this new CAP reform, it's just simply impossible to fill out all the right documents.
Well, that's right. The red tape is a big problem for us. And most of the farmers actually have that as a first matter of concern. When we ask them what would they focus on in the next reform or whatever changes we put in place, that is usually the first thing that they mention.
Okay, Mr. Peterson, thank you so much for your time. Well, let's take a closer look at that right now. Italy is one of the European Union's largest agricultural countries. It's set to receive 52 billion euros over the next 7 years as part of that CAP policy. Meat and milk sector taking a large chunk of that. Each dairy cow will receive between 100 and 200 euros, a sizable sum for farmers in that domain, but they complain that filling out the application process is anything but easy.
Each step must be meticulously followed. The milk is left to stand for several hours in order to pass this test. The farmers can tell it's ready only when the curd is put into water at exactly 93 degrees.
Look, the cheese curd is stretching well. It's perfect. It's the right moment to start making the mozzarella.
Gabriele Nisi produces 200 kilos a week of mozzarella. And all the milk comes from his dairy farm, which benefits from EU farming subsidies. A few years ago, Gabriele took over the reins at his grandfather's farm, which used to produce only milk from its cattle.
With the price of milk as it is, we couldn't make ends meet. We were no longer even able to pay for fodder to feed the cows. And so we had to start producing cheese, to transform our milk into something new, to diversify our business.
It was a winning decision for Gabriele. Every year he receives around 10,000 euros in EU farming subsidies for his dairy farm. And thanks to the new Rural Development Programme, he has the chance to receive money to help modernise the business.
I'd like to make improvements to my cow shed, but it's quite expensive. Are there subsidies for that?
Yes, the Rural Development Programme offers subsidies that will cover up to 50% of the cost for changing the roof or removing asbestos, for example.
Gabriele is one of some 36,000 Italian dairy and cattle farmers. Of the 52 billion euros that Italy will receive over 7 years under the CAP, this sector will receive a big proportion, 1.47 billion euros. But in order to receive the money, forms must be filled out, and many farmers feel lost amongst the new layers of red tape. In the suburbs of Rome, information meetings have multiplied. The objective? To explain what the reform means.
In Italy, there's less money for the CAP. Basically, there are fewer resources to be shared among a larger and more varied group of farmers. Before, wine producers and fruit and vegetable farmers weren't eligible for subsidies under the CAP. But now they are.
In her cattle farm, Antonella Peruzzi has invested almost 100,000 euros to make it 100% organic. Thanks to this investment, she is eligible to receive new green subsidies.
Look, all the hay that we produce here for our cows is organic. We don't use any chemical products or weed killers. And we add a natural protein element to each portion.
In addition to the environmental subsidies, Antonella received almost double the amount for her suckler cows. Around 200 euros per animal each year. A great help to a farm that has 85 cows among its herd.
A farm like this wouldn't exist without the CAP. The subsidies are essential because the management costs are just too high.
While the country is still adapting to the end of milk quotas, many cattle and dairy farmers are relying on the new CAP subsidies to counter price instability and to stabilise the bovine sector in Italy.
We've now come to Belgium. We're in a farm called La Chise, just under an hour's drive from the capital, Brussels. And with us we have Socialist Democrat MEP Marc Tarabella. Thanks for being with us. Firstly, tell us a little bit about this farm where we are now.
Well, because this farm symbolized multifunctional production. It's fruit, as you see, but also crops, sugar beet, and they symbolize the multifunctional agriculture that we have everywhere in Belgium.
Well, indeed, this farm is fruit and vegetable production, and for the first time ever, that's going to gain them some income due to these CAP reforms.
Yes, because with the CAP reform, we focus more on the hectares and the number of hectares, and now we include all productions, and for example here, fruit and vegetable production.
At the same time, I was speaking to the owner of the farm a little earlier, and because he's not just fruit and vegetables, he has cereals, he's actually going to lose 25% of his revenue, also due to the new reforms.
Yes, because first reason, the budget of European Union for agriculture is not increasing, and second reason is that we had opted for a double harmonization. Between countries, it was the external harmonization, and in a country, some region earned more than others, and we have a national harmonization. Here, in a very productive region, they are victims of the two harmonization at the same time.
So, not just wanting to concentrate on the negative, but this farm also produces sugar beets, something else that looks to be in trouble.
Yes, because they fear the abandon of the quota of production in 2017, and they fear that, but because they focus on what we have as example for milk. We abandoned this year in 2015 the quota, milk quota, and the price is very huge decreasing of the price.
Okay, well, Mr. Tarabella, we're going to take a look across in neighbouring Germany now. It's the world's fourth producer of sugar beet, and producers there are clearly starting to get worried about what could be on the horizon for them. Our correspondent sends us this report.
For Helmut, this is his penultimate season before the quotas come to an end in 2017. We're in Lower Saxony, one of the major sugar beet farming regions in Germany. After a record harvest last year, sugar beet farmers here are now a little more cautious. This year they stopped farming a fifth of their land.
We're producing the exact amount set by the European quotas. That means we're producing less than we used to, so we don't saturate the market.
Like France, Germany has done very well off the quotas and did its best to keep the system in place, at least until 2020. But there was strong opposition from many other EU countries.
In Europe, there's a deficit. Everyone just thinks about themselves. But sugar beet grows better here than in Spain, that's the truth. They should put some faith in us. You need to understand sugar beet. It takes a lot of expertise, a lot of experience and passion.
Here they would have liked a little more time to prepare for the competition on the world market. Since reforms in 2006, half of Europe's sugar factories have had to shut down.
It was really hard back then for sugar beet farmers, but we did all we could to stay competitive. We'll have to adjust again this time, but not everyone will be able to.
And there's a double risk for Helmut and the sugar beet farmers in this region. They're also shareholders in the local sugar factory.
This is where we load the sugar beet, and from here it gets fed directly into the factory production line.
Now with the end of the quotas looming, the German industry is doing all it can to stay competitive, improving yield and reducing the costs of production and processing. They've invested 55 million euros in this factory since 2009.
This is our control centre. We direct the whole factory from here. We're invested in the future. And we did that because we're optimistic about life beyond 2017.
This year, they'll process 1.5 million tonnes of sugar beet. That's 20% less than last year. But here they're hoping that the price of sugar will rise again.
The price instability will be hard to manage. Right now, the prices are very low, but we hope they will rise again and we can start to produce more. There will be some volatility, but we'll hang in there.
Sugar prices have been fluctuating for quite a while now. Over 4 years, the price of white sugar on the world market has more than halved.
Well, back from that sugar beet in Germany to these beautiful orchards here in Belgium. Apples that really had to remain on the trees, a lot of them over the last year, that because of embargoes from Russia.
Yes, because Russia is a big importer of European fruits. And of course we have some mechanism to crisis management in the European CAP. But the money that they receive in compensation was not was not enough. We have, of course, to find other markets, but also to encourage the increasing of the consumption of fruit and vegetable in Europe, because in 24 countries on 28, we have a lack of consumption of those. We have to follow the recommendation of the WHO, and we have to eat more apple, for example.
There you've heard it, to eat more fruit, keep those markets going. That brings us to the end of this show dedicated to the Common Agricultural Policy. We hope you enjoyed. See you again next time.